This is it. The show.
I'll ask for approval of the minutes from our March 21st, 2023 meeting. Thank you, Rick. Seconded by Troy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item on our agenda is to review the draft of our 2023 audit, the financial audit, and we will be hearing John Rinkowitz from Mango Metzger Bar to review it. A lot of, to review the audit with us, but I think the findings just top of the line there is that it looks like we did fairly well. There's no material weaknesses or misstatements or audit adjustments or internal control issues. So I think those are hopefully those are the headlines.
Those are pretty much.
We look forward to you walking us through the
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone should have copies of the draft reports. In their draft right now, we just yesterday got the bond information that we need to complete one footnote. And that's the only reason we have drafts right now is we have to wait for that information before we can finalize the report. Now that we have it, we'll be able to move forward with finalizing.
But I do want to say we got it ahead of time from last year.
I know. It's difficult because you have to wait for
a lot later, and I was pretty proud of myself.
Yeah,
it worked out this year.
So we've got those, but that's why we have drafts. The audit, just to mention, went very smoothly again this year. The team here does a great job of getting us in, making themselves available and to us as needed, and responding to our requests. And the team over at Bonadio, same thing, being very responsive to our requests and addressing our questions and everything. So everything went very well again this year. And as Ian mentioned, for the report, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, and no modifications there. We have copies of the financial statements. Everyone should have a copy of that. You have the management, or the communication of internal controls, and the management communication, so 3 separate reports. I'm going to walk you through this summary that we put together, executive summary, because it's a real quick synopsis of all the kind of high points of what happened financially and what you find in the reports. But I'll be happy to address any questions anyone has on any of the reports that you've seen. Okay, so if we open the executive summary, go to the first page here, the statement in that position, your balance sheet, and there's comparative balances, so you can see where your numbers were last year compared to this year. Okay, and in the asset section, investments in U.S. securities, investing some of your idle cash, a very appropriate use of those funds, taking advantage of the higher interest rates that are available these days to increase your return on that money. Okay, your non-current assets, see a shift here. Majority of that is the acreage that's held as land for sale. No changes in that year to year. The pension liability, I bring this up every year because it's just, when you're looking at your changes year to year, it creates this big kind of swing. Under the current guidance, you're required to report your portion of how well funded the pension system is. Last year, you had an asset on your books as a part of non-current assets. This year, it's a liability of $300,000, which you see in the non-current section here. Once you net the actual impact of that, what you see here reported as deferred outflows and inflows, the actual impact is a decrease of about $70,000 to your net position. You really don't have any control over it. It's just how they have an actuary that reports from the pension system, tells you what those numbers are going to be. You put it on your books. And I only bring it up just because it's such a big number, reporting things. Okay. In your liability section, just some changes, or what you have there mainly are your payments for your economic development projects that you have authorized. And you can see some of the detail down in the financial highlights of what makes up those balances this year. All right, so those are just the amounts you've agreed to pay that you're still waiting to make payments on at year end. Well, overall, your net position increased 2.8 million, nearly 2.9 million this year. So very good year. And when we go to the next page, we'll look at some of the things that make up that change. Okay. So summarize revenues, expenses, and change in net position. So your income statement, we have revenues up at the top. And again, comparative balances so we can see where you were last year to where you were this year. We see a drop in fee revenue, but last year you had a very good year. A lot of projects and a lot of kind of mid-range projects really drove up that number last year. This year you still had two very large projects. In fact, a majority of this amount, if you look down the financial highlight section, two projects represent 5.3 million of
Life
that.
cycle and
It's going to be Andrews Terrace and a portion of the Fairlife fee.
Fairlife, right? Andrews Terrace.
Yeah, right. So another good year for fees, but a majority of it made up of two balances. Okay. In the expenditure side, we do see some increases. You had some additional approved projects, YAMTEP, the new MCC optics program. Costs there. Operating expenditures, so some expansion in the PTAC project. And then some increase in pension benefits, and I mentioned earlier, 70,000 of that's actually related to simply just recognizing the change in the overall pension system amount that you really don't have control over that.
And the PTAC is just a pass-through.
So,
correct?
Yes. Yeah, generally it's right, if doesn't matter how much money we bring in, because we have expenses that kind of match that.
Exactly.
Sometimes there's timings in there, right? So where our PTAC expenses went up 120,000, our revenue went up 140,000.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really that should be, in a theoretical world, those should kind of net to zero, but again, there's a little timing in there. And then the IDA's portion of the support of that is, I think last year was 92,000, maybe it was. And I know that's increasing moving forward, the spend, and also the match is going to increase, or the
Increase from the DOD.
From the DOD is going to increase, yeah. So there's some good things going on with that program.
That's great.
Yeah.
okay. So overall increase $2.8 million. You ended up in very good financial position again this year. Any questions on any of the elements here, the balance sheet or income statement?
I'm not sure that I, in that material, saw, well, I'm sure there was a reference to internal controls. Are we all okay
Yep.
there?
Okay.
Do you want to talk about that?
Talk about that next. So as a part of this testing, we do have to, our auditing standards require us to look at internal controls, and because your ABO standards and public authorities are required to be audited under governmental auditing standards, which is actually the federal requirements, we have to look at internal controls, and we actually given you an opinion in the back of the report where we talk about, we did look at your internal controls. Again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, which are those big issues that indicate that there could be some issues that need some immediate attention. And then we do issue a management letter, report on internal control, separate letter there. And there were no recommendations this year based on our review of your internal controls.
Which you always want to hear, right?
Exactly, right? So doing a very good job and very responsive to any of our questions and anything. So. And then you do have a letter of communication, which is a required communication under our auditing standards. And that really just talks about how the audit went and whether there were any significant issues getting through the audit or any risks that we identified. And there were no issues getting through the audit or again, material weaknesses or anything significant that needed to be reported. Any other?
Sounds very positive. So there wasn't any back and forth, any issues between our firm and our team? No questions came up or?
All our questions were answered, so any questions on, again, we dig into all these little elements and any questions that came up during the audit were addressed. There were no disagreements or material adjustments that were required to.
So on that note, and what changed from draft to an updated draft?
The management's discussion and analysis section, which is at the beginning of the report, it's a required piece of the report. When we issue the initial draft, those are blanks. The folks here actually fill out some of that information, future factors, and discussion about what material changes are. So we got that information, put it in, and that's why you haven't updated that in the original draft.
Thank you.
That's on page 5 and 6. There's some of that commentary.
And a lot of good information in there.
And as you mentioned in your opening statements, you had unfettered access to our team.
Mm-hmm.
And they were responsive and worked with you.
Yeah, and I think we do planning with folks and schedule our time, and as I mentioned, everyone does a really good job of making themselves available, and communication's key, and their team communicates very well with us, and I think that really helps us get through our work. So.
What's the amount of time that this all, when you actually start working on the audit? I know it's pretty intensive there. What, is it a couple months or so?
No, we're typically on site for 3 days, and I have a team of at least 3 staff working on things, more experienced staff and some other staff. I'm typically on site for a couple days as well. And then we will work on the reports for the next few weeks and get additional information as needed, and there's always some things that are delayed, and typically just the timing of when that information comes in is more what those delays are again.
It's
about, I would say, almost a 3 to 4 week process from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Pretty condensed, right? Because you come, John can speak to that, come out and do the field work, ask a bunch of questions, and then go back and kind of summarize all the data and the reports, and then they send it to us. Right, to review as a draft. We make any commentary.
When we say, what are you?
Or again, it's just stuff. It's like we go, and then it's like the last week's hard because it's 3 to 4 weeks to do the amount of work that these folks do is quite a bit. So there's a lot of cooperation from a lot of different people to make that happen.
Robin's wearing it.
No, Dalton actually.
It's 2 weeks of my life.
Yeah.
How much are what is your fee at this point for the audit?
Question. I'd have to look at the engagement letter.
Allison's gonna grab that. Are we approving that also? The audit one?
No, I mean, again, I think we approved we approved a 3 or 4 year contract with the set
So we're still in
fees.
that.
We're still within that.
Okay.
I think we might have I don't know if we did that last year or it might even have been last year.
We did in December, I
Yeah.
wanna say, when we were reviewing all the annual contracts.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we did that. 13-ish, I would be willing to bet.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
11,850.
Fine, okay.
So that was 2022.
That was what?
That was 2022.
Okay.
And I think it might have.
There was a nominal increase for 23
Yeah.
and it's probably a 3 to 4% year until I think we end in 25 or whatever that may be. So
Okay.
by comparison standards, it's a very, I would say, a very reasonable fee.
Yes, I would say.
Here we go.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions? For staff?
12,150.
12,150 for 2024.
12,150.
For 2023,
Yeah.
oh, for 2023.
Yeah.
It's the 2023 audit done in 2024.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
150 for 2023.
You just wanna get to that 2025, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, no other questions. I'll ask for a motion to approve the draft audit for, it says 2022.
Oh, that's just, yeah, that's the
23.
the motion is right.
Motion is right, yours
The
wrong.
year is wrong. See, I gotta catch these.
Right,
Yours are hard, you know, it's hard.
Okay, so we
Motion.
need a motion to approve the 2023 unit audited by Mengel, Metzger, and Barr, and that we recommend to the full board that the 2023 audit pending final bond data be approved. And Troy, you moved that, and Rhett seconded. Any comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very much. Opposed? No. There weren't any. So we're really pleased that we have an audit that's of this significance, and these are large amounts of money that we're really growing because of our success, but to control the management of all of the funds coming in and going out is really recognizing the efforts of our team. They can stay another year. Perhaps. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is to review the audit committee charter. I don't think we have any staff recommendations to change the charter.
Thank you, John.
What page is that?
Page 3 is the charter, and that's right, we're not recommending any changes to the language here.
All right, any questions from the committee on that? On the charter? No? Okay. We have a motion to approve the committee charter, audit committee charter, moved by Rhett, seconded by Troy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. How about the whistleblower policy, page 7 in my packet? No changes recommended to that, so
No changes.
any comments, questions? All right, shall we have a motion to approve the whistleblower policy? Thank you, Troy, seconded by Rhett. Any additional comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. On our self-evaluation, which is on page 10, I would say we fared pretty well, and we're pretty consistent in our thinking among the members of the committee.
We address items 6 and 7 perhaps for conversation.
6 was, does the committee consider necessary training to enhance I think we're pretty open about, gee, we need some training on some issues. We didn't have our little summer meeting this past year.
Right.
But that's often where we'll, have some educational sessions that are beneficial, so. So I think we most, try to speak up. And then 7 is, do we recommend qualifications for new board members? There's a couple of not sure's.
Right. I don't think that's necessarily been our practice.
Not really. The appointing authority is the legislature.
Right.
And at times in history, they'll ask for input for a new board member, but generally speaking, they know the qualifications and the types of individuals they're looking to appoint to the board. So it usually just works out that it's a great appointment.
Back to the educational, with the amount of money that we're continuing to see grow in investments, I think it would be important for each board member to understand better the investment process and where our restrictions are, where's the best bang for the buck, who oversees when interest. We're starting to see $465,000 in interest last year. These numbers are starting to get
Pretty
a
significant.
little bit above and beyond when I came on 8 years ago, right? And if the educational piece of it, I'm beating my chest hard on this, and we'll talk about it later today. But this is becoming a significant, and the board members are still on the hook for our decisions, and we need, in my opinion, I'd feel more comfortable instead of addressing it month over month at a meeting and conversation. I would like to have something to take with me for reference so I can make better educated motions and decisions in that process.
What is it? What do you mean?
Yeah, what are you thinking of?
The education of an investment. We're a board that's investing 15, soon to be $20 million.
We'll have the presentation by high probability, well, we'll get to that at the
Yeah.
finance committee.
Right.
Bringing on an investment advisor, but something that you could take with you on a month,
Well, I'm very concerned when you say investment advisor. So this is still not an entity that I'm looking for that is going to, and Greg, I wanted to talk about this. When I saw this come over, I'm still very concerned. And I don't think, and I know for myself, I'm not educated well enough to be confident to say, I'm willing to engage 15 million with an advisor, okay? I would think that there's some value to what's the difference between an advisor, consultant, custodian, okay? An advisor is not a custodian, okay? And I think the educational part of this to better let the board understand, because I'm a pessimist, if something was to go awry, and I can keep talking about this over and over, out of our control, we're still on the hook. We're still on the hook as a board, and we keep talking about the insurance and this, yeah, but not when it's starting to get to the numbers that we're getting and we're starting to see. And we can talk more on the finance end of everything here, but I think one part of an educational, when I came on board, I did the online, and I was in a group with the multiple people to do the original startup training, which was huge, great piece, but now that's been 8 years. My education has been, and thank you very much for what you provide for us when we do a review annually. But once again, it's verbal, it's a day that we talk. But for me, education is something that I can take with me and reference.
And members of your sister board at MCIDC had similar questions at our committee meetings last week about training opportunities, and that's a very good point, Troy, that the authorities budget office and comptroller's office training that, or guidance that you're provided when you're initially appointed as a board member, that's a one-off, and it shouldn't necessarily be a one-off. Perhaps we can do some sort of a refresher once a year, so staff can look into that. There's no shortage of information provided by the comptroller's office and the authorities budget office on, you know, authority controls and what we can and can't do with our money. So we can work to provide you with that information more frequently. We'll consider that as staff and get back to the board about it.
Thanks.
And they could be, you know, labeled as educational sessions.
Yeah.
Or we bring the board together.
I've noticed
Key
that
topics.
I sit on
I
a
think that is
couple,
helpful.
I sit on a couple other boards that use Onboard as a resource and as an electronic resource, and Onboard has a portal that includes board training materials, so board members can log on and remind themselves or refresh their memories on the training. Maybe we can put something like that on our website.
A resource, right? Something that you can, educate yourself on your own time, or if it's something that we need to get sent out. I mean, this was nothing I ever imagined as a board member coming into, as a fiduciary on other funds. You know, I want to stay diligent to cover my butt. That's all it is. And I know that I've been talking about this and talking about it, and it's still something I would feel needs to get addressed.
Do we feel like we have enough information on that topic to
I
be
think
responsive?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll take a look at what resources are out there and available and compile some of that together and distribute it to the board.
Okay.
Work on a plan.
And we can bring that up in the finance committee meeting, 7 or 8 minutes.
Actually, 3.
Oh, it is 3. That clock's behind.
Oh, it is, yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
3 minutes.
that's what the director does to get more out of the team. Set the clock back a
Yeah.
few minutes.
And does it at random, so we never know.
Yeah.
All right, is there
Tricks of the trade.
any other business to come before the audit committee? All right, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Moved by Rhett, seconded